Greetings and welcome to part 1 of the procrastination module. Procrastination is when A, you have identified that something is in quadrant 1 or 2, so the task is either urgent and important or important but not urgent, and B, you have the time to do it, yet C, somehow you still don't get it done, or you don't get it done on time, or you turn it in at the last possible moment. You may think, this kind of sounds like me, but then again it doesn't. So to help you decipher if procrastination is an issue for you, here's a quick quiz. Be sure to keep track of how many of these statements are true and how many are false. Procrastination quiz. 1. I often find myself completing assignments right before they're due. 2. Generally, jobs and assignments don't get done for days, even when they require little else except sitting down and doing them. 3. When I have something important to do, I generally tell myself it's better to wait until I feel inspired to do it. 4. I do my best work under pressure, so I tend to wait until the last possible moment to do it. 5. I don't need to give each assignment my all. As long as I pass, that's A-okay with me. 6. I often don't know where to begin, so I delay starting a project. And 7. Assignments tend to overwhelm me, so I postpone beginning them. Take a moment and tally up how many of these statements you found true. If you found any of the statements true, procrastination is a beast that you need to tame. And guess what? You're not alone. As many as 20% of Americans admit to being chronic procrastinators. But why do people procrastinate in the first place? People procrastinate for a whole wealth of reasons, from a fear of failure to a fear of success, from laziness to perfectionism, from disliking a task to feeling overwhelmed by that task, and finally, from boredom to a lack of energy. You may be thinking, so yes, I procrastinate, but I always get things done, so what's the big deal? The big deal is that you're stressing yourself out and trapping yourself in an endless cycle. It all starts with you being assigned a task. You naturally put it off, and that leads to a small amount of stress. So you put it off some more, and the stress builds. That leads to you eventually dreading the task and avoiding it. So you put it off some more, and that eventually leads to anxiety. If you decide to complete the assignment, that will lead to you scrambling to complete it. This cycle is not only unhealthy, but it often leads to poor or subpar performance on assignments. In addition, it creates distorted thinking. Distorted thinking, or cognitive distortions, are the ways in which our mind convinces us of things that aren't true. These inaccuracies are usually used to reinforce negative thinking or emotions. It's basically telling ourselves things that sound rational and accurate, but really only serve to keep us feeling bad about ourselves. Since procrastinators tend to fall into distorted thinking, I'll introduce you to the 5 most common forms of distorted thinking, ways to overcome distorted thinking, and finally, how to tame your procrastination beast once and for all. The first form of distorted thinking that we'll discuss is catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is when you magnify things to catastrophic proportions. You'll say something like, if I fail this test, I'll fail this class, which means that I'll fail out of school, which means that me and my cat, Mr. Fluffles, meow, will be homeless. Also, there is minimizing. Minimizing is when you inappropriately shrink the importance of an issue, also called the monocular effect. So you'll say something like, I didn't do well on the test, but it's only worth 10% of my grade. I'll just get 100% on everything else and walk out of this class with an A-. Then there's mental filtering. Mental filtering is when you dwell on the negatives while ignoring the positives of a situation. So while giving a presentation, you receive many accolades and one criticism. And instead of focusing on the many positive comments you got and noting that you could improve in that one area, you obsess about the criticism and ignore all of the positive feedback you received. Then there's labeling. Labeling is when you identify and define yourself by your shortcomings. Instead of I failed that math test, you say something like I fail at life. There's also should statements. Should statements are when you tell yourself things that should be a certain way. You should have done better on that chemistry test. You should clean your room. Should statements that are directed against yourself lead to guilt and frustration. They fail because instead of motivating you to clean your room or study more, they lead to feelings of rebellion. Instead of doing what you purport that you should do, you do the opposite, thus setting off a reoccurring cycle. When you direct should statements against other people or the world in general, that leads to anger and frustration. When you find yourself in distorted thinking, what should you do? To find out, watch part 2 of the procrastination module. Thanks for watching.
Created using Powtoon.